Welcome back to the Long Con. I am your host, John Hartness. I am a fantasy author, podcaster, publisher, editor, whatever somebody's willing to throw money at me to be. And today I am your host on how to be a good panelist at a convention. A friend of mine asked for some tips on being a panelist at DragonCon, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks. I'm not at all panicked about that. And it's her first convention, not her first big convention, not her first massive convention. No, it's the first time she's ever been a panelist anywhere. Nothing like jumping into the deep end, is it? DragonCon is, I don't know, 85,000 of your closest friends, and it's got a ton of people there. It is a little over, right around 400 guests, everybody from celebrities like William Shatner to unknowns like me. And a lot of the time is taken up with panels. Now, for mid-list and emerging authors, being on panels at conventions is a great way to get your face out there in front of readers. In a perfect world, you get a chance to be on a panel like one I was on at DragonCon a few years ago, where the lineup was Jim Butcher, Larry Correia, Carrie Vaughn, Faith Hunter, Laurel K. Hamilton, Jonathan Mayberry, me. I'm the only person on the frickin' table who hasn't sold 1 million books. That's a fantastic place for me to be because almost everybody in the room had never heard of me before. Larry Correia's fans have bought all of Larry's books, but they haven't bought many, if any, of mine. Same with Carrie, same with Jonathan, same with Faith, same with Butcher. All those people their fans have already got their stuff. Maybe they're looking for the newest thing, but I've got a whole backlist to expose readers to at conventions, and that's why I do 20 or 30 of them in a year. That's why I do an entire video series on how to do conventions better as a writer. So here are some tips for you the first time that you do a panel at a convention. Maybe these are tips for people who have done some panels and don't have any clue what you're doing. It's not like there's a school for this. There's not a lot of classes. I came into doing panels at science fiction and fantasy cons after almost 20 years of being on panels and doing presentations at professional conferences for my first career, which was designing theatrical lighting and rigging systems. Since I had done that, it was not a big deal for me to transition into doing panels in this world. But there's still some things that I had to learn along the way. And there's still some things that I'm learning every time I do a convention. But this is a pretty good place for you guys to start. Speaking of starting, get to the panel room early. Don't be on time, because on time is when the panel is supposed to be there at least 5 minutes before the panel is supposed to start. This gives you time to find your seat. Find a seat if there aren't enough chairs at the table. Introduce yourself to the moderator. Introduce yourself to the other panelists if you are the moderator. Make sure you're in the right room. I did a convention this year where four of us were sitting at the front of the room. Panel's just about to start. It's about 3 minutes. The guest of honor for the con walks in. Everybody up there's like, hey, how's it going? Didn't know you were on this panel. He looks at his schedule. He looks at all of us and he says, I'm not. I'm in the wrong room. Zoop! There he goes. If he'd shown up 4 minutes later, he would have been late for his panel, which fortunately was in the room next door, so he could get there. It's not uncommon, especially at a huge convention like Dragon, for people to just get stuck in the elevator. We had to hold a panel for Sherilyn Kenyon a few years ago at Dragon because The panel was 11 o'clock on Monday, and everybody was trying to check out of the hotel. She spent 30 minutes trying to catch an elevator. 30 minutes in the same hotel is usually plenty of time to get from your room to the panel, but sometimes it's not. So do everything you can to get there early. Speaking of early, know how long the panel is supposed to be. At a lot of smaller regional cons, Con Carolinas, for example, which is a convention I do every year here in Charlotte. You should all come join us. It's at concarolinas.org. It's a great convention for writers. Panels are in 1-hour time slots. That doesn't mean the panel is 1 hour long. That means the panel's 50 minutes long, because for the next panel to start on the hour, you've got to turn over the room. That means that everybody talking about Marvel versus DC has to finish up, get off the table, get out of the room, so that the people who are getting ready to come in to talk about, I don't know, Supernatural versus Dresden Files, they have time to get in, get settled, and start on time. So make sure that you're not just early to arrive, but make sure that you're keeping an eye on the clock and can help make sure that the panel ends on time and that you know what on time is. At Dragon, panels are the full hour with 30 minutes on each side to start. So you don't have as much worry if you're running over for a few minutes, unless you have to get from point A to point B, and it will frequently take you more than 30 minutes. I had a panel last year on Saturday afternoon that was in the Hilton. The Hilton downtown is about 4 blocks from the Westin Peachtree. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday of DragonCon, you're not making that in 30 minutes on foot. You just can't do it. I didn't bother to try. I found someone to replace me on the panel ahead of time. I cleared it with the track director for the panel, and I didn't kill myself trying to rush in the heat of Labor Day weekend. I'm not a small dude, so that would not have been pretty. And then when our panel let out at 3 o'clock, the human traffic in the Hilton was so bad that it took me almost 30 minutes to get back to the Hyatt, which is halfway from the Hilton to the Westin. There's no way I would have made it to the panel. So be aware of your time between panels. Be aware of how long it takes to get places. If it's possible, get to the con early and walk around. Figure out how long it takes you to get to places when it's empty. Find out where things are. Con Carolinas, there is programming on 3 different floors of the hotel. You might need to know where every room is, and sometimes the maps aren't the best. So pay attention. Figure your shit out. If you're like me, this year I've got panels on a track at Dragon that I've never been on before. I'm doing a panel for the High Fantasy track. That's awesome. It's in the Marriott. I haven't done many panels in the Marriott. It's on level L. Okay, that's not a floor number. I only know where L is because it's the same floor where I pick up my badge. But if I didn't know that, I could be wandering around the hotel looking for my room. You gotta kind of take some time and learn the lay of the land. When you're on the panel, how do you behave? I shoot for kind of irreverent. It's sort of my brand. Slightly profane, pretty snarky. It's what I do. Here's something to keep in mind. Be sober. Some people can panel drunk. Most people cannot. There's a difference between walking in with a beer in hand or walking in with a drink and staggering in shit-faced. Know that difference. Know what you can handle. I've done both. One of them makes me look fun and irreverent. The other makes me look like an idiot. I prefer the one that doesn't make me look like an idiot. I can do plenty of things to make myself look stupid. If I stay sober, at least while I'm still doing programming for the day, that's one fewer stupid thing. Not saying you have to stay sober after you're done, but this is your job. If you're a doctor, you probably shouldn't show up loaded. If you're a cop, we'd really prefer that you not be blitzed while you're working. Frankly, if you're a meter maid or an office drone, I don't know, if you live in a cube farm, you still shouldn't show up to work drunk. Why would you show up loaded to go to work for this? Like I said, I've done it. It was stupid. It probably hurt my career. Certainly hurt my reputation with some people. Oh well. All I can do is move forward and do better. If you can avoid needing to do better, then you're ahead of me. Rock on. That's what this is for. Have water with you. Some conventions will have water stations in the room. Sometimes there'll be a pitcher of water on the table. Avail yourself of that shit. There is nothing worse than getting a dry mouth or a cough in the middle of being on a panel. Carry mints, cough drops, all of those things that make you be able to talk for hours and hours over the course of a day. Have that shit with you. Know what you're doing. You're going to sit in front of people who you want to eventually give you money for your words, and you're going to try to look like you know what the hell you're talking about. You sound like you're coughing up a hairball. Nobody's going to hear any of the words you're trying to say. All they're going to hear is, oh my God, is that guy dying? So, drink water. Get some for the guy next to you, the lady next to you. Take care of each other. Bring a notepad. This is one I picked up from Deb Dixon, who's the publisher of Bellbridge Books, my publisher for the Black Knight Chronicles. I was doing a panel with Deb. I don't even remember what convention it was. Maybe Dragon, probably Dragon. But it was. I think it was a short fiction panel at Dragon. Maybe it was editorial. I don't know. But I noticed that even after 20-something years in the writing and publishing world, Deb sits down, pulls out a notepad, and every time the moderator asks a question, she writes down the question. And then she writes down a couple of her answers. If something comes to her that she wants to comment on in somebody else's answer, she writes that down too. She takes notes about the panel. Huh. Who'da thunk? Yeah, it's a great idea. It helps a lot. Sometimes there's 7 or 8 people on a panel. Some of them are going to be wordy bastards. You might not even remember what the question was by the time it gets to you. Write it down. Then you don't look like that dumbass that's, I don't remember what the question was. Because the audience isn't going to think that, oh, well, the 4 people in front of him were just really wordy and took too long. They're going to think, that idiot was playing on his phone or wasn't paying attention. I fake coughed my way into having to cough. Well done, son. So, have a notepad. Write down multiple possible ideas for answers, too. That way you're not the schmuck at the end of the line saying, I don't have anything to say. They took my answer. It's okay to say, I have nothing to add. So-and-so covered it very well. But saying, Jim Butcher took my answer, well, then you're a dumbass. You only had one thing to say on this topic. Let's see. Oh shit, I just totally embiggened my notes and now I can't see anything else. Sorry, hang on. Oh yeah. Don't make the panel a billboard for your stuff. Yes, you're there to sell books. The way you do that is selling yourself. Not like that, but a lot like that. Only you don't have to wear hot pants. You can. You be you. But you don't have to. But don't make every answer about your book. Yeah, you probably can relate every single answer to every question on the panel to your work, to something you've written. Because you're on the panel, so you probably have some level of expertise in it. That gets really boring really quickly. They understand that you want to sell books. They understand that your stuff is the most awesome stuff. Try to limit the mentions of your own work to maybe 2, not counting your introduction. Talk about other people's books. Talk about your friends' books. Talk about another panelist's books. Talk about a book from your childhood that you love. Connect to other things that you've read. Not only does it make you look smarter because you read, but also it makes you look like you have less of a colossal ego. This is particularly an issue for me because I have a colossal ego. Even if you don't want to look like you do. Along those same lines, I'm not a fan of authors building a wall of their books to hide behind. I look at the biggest authors on the panel. Not like me, fat, but the biggest names. The most famous authors don't have to sit behind their newest release. They have their name tag, the little nameplate, because not everyone recognizes authors, thank God. But you don't see John Scalzi sitting behind a copy of Lock-In. John's there to talk about writing in general and maybe his work, but probably not just his work. So he's not carrying around his book to shill this piece of paper. I look at it kind of like auditioning for the job you want, or dressing for the job you want. That's what I meant. Fake it till you make it. I want to present myself as much like the biggest names in the industry as I possibly can. So I'm not going to look to other authors who are at my level of sales and visibility to see who to emulate. I'm going to look at people who are bigger than me. That's who I want to be next year. So that's who I want to be perceived as. Part of that is going to be figuring out where you are on the panel, not your chair. You can probably figure that out. But career-wise, topic-wise, education-wise, I'm an old theater guy. I've spent a couple dozen years in performing, designing, directing, producing theater. I have a level of expertise in that and in the works of Shakespeare. I worked for a Shakespeare company. I've directed Shakespeare. I've performed Shakespeare. Con Carolinas a couple of years ago, I'm on a panel with a middle school teacher, a high school teacher, no, former high school teacher, a college professor who's a medievalist, and a college professor who is the endowed chair of Shakespearean studies at a university. I kept my goddamn mouth shut a lot. I was by no stretch the biggest Shakespeare expert or the most studied Shakespeare expert on that panel. I tried to make one or two good points, and I felt like if I said one or two relevant and salient things over the course of that 50 minutes, then I did great. If I made people laugh somehow, even better, then I'm memorable. Same panel I talked about earlier where I'm on there with Mayberry and Korea and Butcher and Laurel and all these people. We're doing all the intros. Everybody's clapping after every author. I'm Jonathan Mayberry. I've won 1 million Stoker Awards. I'm a legit badass. I'm an awesome human being. I'm Jim Butcher. I'm the snarky urban fantasy godfather. I'm Carrie Vaughn. I've written amazing urban fantasy for years. I'm Larry Correa. I write the Monster Hunter International books. I'm amazing. And I'm like, and everybody applauds after everybody. I say, hi, I'm John Hartness. I write blah, 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 blah. And a couple of people politely applaud. I lean forward into the mic and say, it's okay. I know I'm the guy up here none of you have ever heard of. The room cracks up, and I have a dozen people come up to me after the panel because I made one joke. I made one self-deprecating crack on me. And it let everybody know that I understood that I was not the person that they came to that room to see. I'm fine with that. Larry wasn't picking up a whole lot of new fans out of that room. I was. So by understanding where I fit in the hierarchy of urban fantasy authors, which is off screen down here, I was able to leverage that into a big laugh and some new fans. Some of those people are now my Patreon patrons. Worked out pretty well. Be succinct. The opposite of what I've done in this video. If the panel runs for an hour and there are 5 panelists and a moderator, everybody gets maybe 10 minutes. If there are 5 questions, that means you get 2 minutes per question. If your egg timer goes off, you've talked too damn long. Now you take out 2 minutes per panelist for audience questions down at the end of the panel. Don't ramble. You don't have time. Make your point, get to it, get it said, pass it off. Somebody on the panel is going to talk too much. It might be me. Sorry. Sometimes I don't do a good job of listening to my own advice. I try. It's something I'm actively trying to do better about, is listening to myself and thinking, am I talking too much? The answer is almost always yes. So listen to yourself. Decide if you're talking too much. The answer is probably yes. Read the room. Read the room and the convention, particularly on profanity. Used to be, my buddy James, first line on a panel was, James R. Tuck, and I say fuck on panels. It got a big laugh. As his visibility grew, he toned that down. I have a potty mouth. I swear a good bit. You've seen some of my other videos, you know this. I try to rein it in on panels. I'm trying to learn to rein it in on videos. Nowadays, you get about 1 F-bomb per season on basic cable. I suggest you try to keep it to about that while you're on panels at conventions. DragonCon asks specifically that you don't drop F-bombs on panels that are recorded for DragonCon TV. They also mention that any of your panels may be recorded. Spoiler, you can tell the ones that are being recorded. They're the ones with the camera in the room. Point being, they ask that you don't spew F-bombs all over the place. There's a convention that I do every year called Congregate. The con runner's daughter has been coming to that con since, it existed. I like and respect the people that run that convention, and I like Hannah, their daughter. So I don't swear on panels that she's sitting in. She sits in a lot of the panels, so I don't swear if there are little kids in the room. Read the room. This is my last one. Don't punch down. Here's what I mean. Frankly, don't punch up either. Just don't punch. Don't talk shit. There's always going to be a book you don't like. There are books I don't like. There are books that other people call brilliant that I don't like. The Poppy War is an example. It was a really popular YA book last year, maybe early this year. I don't remember. I think I don't remember. I didn't really care for it. There were things, it just didn't catch me. Wasn't my book. I'm not ever going to say it was a bad book. I'm going to say I didn't love it. Read the whole thing. Liked it. Didn't love it. I'm never going to sit on a panel and say the Poppy War is a piece of crap. Because one, it's not a piece of crap. Two, then I'm the asshole. Poppy War outsold everything I've ever written put together. If I'm talking shit about a huge bestseller, then I look like an asshole. I look like I'm jealous. Pardon me. If I am going to sit on a panel and, let's say I decide to slag on the Dresden Files. Dresden Files is one of my favorite urban fantasy series. So if I am ever on a panel talking shit about the Dresden Files, you'll know I've been abducted by pod people. You'll also think I'm an asshole, and that I'm jealous of the success that Jim Butcher has found that is greater than the success that I have found. I'm not. Jim deserves every success in the world, more power to him. He's one of the inspirations for me writing many of my books. Try not to look like an asshole. For a while, it was the hip thing to bash Twilight. To talk about how stupid Twilight was, how real vampires don't sparkle. Fucking newsflash, there are no real vampires. Talking shit about Twilight was the safe thing for authors to do. It was the cool thing for authors to do. Because, well, Twilight sold 50 million copies. Stephanie Meyer don't care. Stephanie Meyer not only doesn't care, she didn't even hear your ass. Stephanie Meyer's fans, however, may very well have been in the third row of the panel where you were talking about how stupid Twilight was. And if you're sitting there listening to someone insult your favorite book series, or even a series that you just really enjoyed, what is going to be your opinion of that panelist? You're going to think they're an asshole. How many of their books are you going to run right out and buy? 0. People buy things from people they like. A good way to get people to like you, be nice. Just like on Roadhouse. Be nice. Be nice until it is time not to be nice. How will you know when it's time not to be nice? Patrick Swayze will tell your ass. Be nice. There's no win in you slagging on a book. I'm not talking about saying that a book is problematic. If you want to talk about the fact that you loved Ender's Game, but you really dislike cards politics and that gives you pause, join the club. Sorry. I loved Ender's Game, and I completely disagree with cards politics, so I find that book problematic. I'm never going to say that the book is a piece of shit. Never going to say that people who read the book are a piece of shit. I've read the book 4 or 5 times. If you attack a work that is more popular than yours, then you look like you're jealous. You look like sour grapes. If you attack a work that is less popular than yours, then you look like a bully. If you attack a work that is on the same level of popularity as yours, then you look like a jerk. At no point do you look clever. At no point do you look awesome. At no point do you look like anything other than a douche. Try not to look like a douche, because people don't want to buy books from douches. And your job is to sell books. So, let's recap real quickly. Show up early. Bring a bottle of water. Bring a notepad. Take notes during the panel. Ask questions during the panel. Be engaged. Be sober. Yes, you're there to sell things. No, the panel's not all about your work and your book. Referencing other work positively will make you look better. Figure out where you are in relation to the other panelists in expertise and in career relevance. Understand how to leverage that to your benefit. Google the panelists beforehand. You get a list, you get a schedule before the panel of everybody you're going to be on there with. Look them all up. I do that at every convention. I look up everybody I'm on a panel with. So I know whether I'm carrying the load as far as experience. I want to know whether I'm the least experienced person on the panel. I sat on a panel between David Coe and A.J. Hartley at Con Carolinas. Both of these guys are my friends. Both of these guys are incredibly intelligent. I had no shot at being the smartest guy on the panel, so I stuck with being funny. Read the room. Know the convention's policies on profanity. Know the convention's policies, the room, the people who are looking at you. Know what they expect. And don't say fuck in front of the little kids. It's not cool. Also, don't let your kids watch my videos. I say fuck too much. Be succinct. Don't ramble on for 34 minutes and change like I've done here in a video that probably could have run for 25 minutes. And don't ever punch down, up, or sideways. Don't talk shit about other writers or other books. There's no win in it for you. You will just look like a dick. And Wheaton's Law says, don't be a dick. If you got questions, you can send them to me. I'm John at johnhartness.com. You can go to falstaffbooks.com and look up the stuff that I write and publish. And if you're going to be at DragonCon, come find me. I am on a ridiculous number of panels this year. So please, come say hello. I may have to say hi. If you want to chat, we may have to walk and talk at the same time. But I'd love to catch up. Until the next time, y'all be good to one another. All right?